He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the St. David's Children's Chapel Virtual Edition. I miss you all so much, but I'm really glad that we can be together, at least in this way, to be able to connect a little bit. I'm going to get started by lighting my candle, and I hope you will light yours at home with your family. There we go. I have my little dog Wilson here. He's joining us today. And I thought the first thing we could do would be to sing one of my favorite songs that we sing together when we are able to be together at Children's Chapel, and that's This Little Light of Mine. So please join me in singing at home. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Hide it under a bushel, no, I'm gonna let it shine. Hide it under a bushel, no, I'm gonna let it shine. Hide it under a bushel, no, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Great job. Okay, now our story today takes place 3 days after Jesus died. So that was the same day that Mary and some of the other women went to the tomb, and what did they find there? An empty tomb. And they told everyone that there was an empty tomb and that Jesus had come alive again. And our story takes place on a road where two friends of Jesus's were walking. And they were walking along and they were feeling sad about Jesus dying and a little bit confused about the news that they'd been hearing in Jerusalem. So they were taking a journey together to a town called Emmaus. So this is the story of the road to Emmaus. Oh, actually, before we read together, I thought we could say a little prayer. And this is an echo prayer. So I will say a line and then you can repeat it at home. All right, here we go. Dear God, be with us as we walk and learn and wonder together about your great love for us. Thank you for Jesus. Amen. Okay, now why don't we take a little walk with these two friends and try and understand along with them the story of what happened to Jesus. This is the story of the road to Emmaus. 3 days after Jesus died, Cleopas and his friend were slowly walking down the road to Emmaus. They were walking slowly because they felt very sad. Why did Jesus have to die, they wondered. After a while, a stranger began to walk along with them. The stranger was really Jesus, but Cleopas and his friend didn't know it. What are you talking about? The stranger asked. The men looked at each other. Are you the only person in town who doesn't know what just happened? They asked. They told the stranger what had happened to Jesus. Jesus was a great teacher, Cleopas said. We hoped he was the one God promised would save the world, but instead, he died on a cross. We took Jesus' body down and put it in a tomb. This morning, our friends went to the tomb, but Jesus' body was gone. They said there was an angel there instead. The angel told our friends, Jesus is alive, but stop being silly, the stranger said. How many times do you need to hear this? It was God's plan for Jesus to die and become alive again to save the world. By now, they were almost to Emmaus. Cleopas invited the stranger to stay for dinner. During dinner, the stranger picked up a loaf of bread, broke it, blessed it, and gave each man a piece. All of a sudden, Cleopas and his friend recognized the stranger. It was Jesus. But then Jesus disappeared. Cleopas and his friend jumped up, ran from the room, and went to tell the rest of Jesus' disciples that Jesus really was alive. God had kept another promise. Wow. If you saw Jesus walking down the road, who would you tell? And what would you say? Now, at the beginning of our story, these two friends were sad. Why were they sad? Because their great teacher, Jesus, had died, and then they'd heard that he'd risen again. And that was a little bit confusing and scary for them. And that's, I think, why they were headed out of town from the big city of Jerusalem to the smaller town of Emmaus. When did Jesus and his friend when did Cleopas and his friend recognize Jesus? When Jesus blessed and broke the bread. That was something Jesus had done before, right? I hope all of you will remember that from especially the Last Supper. Now, something that might be fun for you to do with your families this week is bake some bread. I baked some bread earlier this week. I have a piece of it here. I made a yummy cheese bread. But you could make any kind of bread, or even just take some bread you have in your house. And I invite you sometime this week, while you're sitting down to eat bread with your family, you should try breaking the bread instead of just slicing it, and have a conversation with your family about a time when you were surprised by Jesus, just as these travelers on the road were surprised by Jesus. And by breaking the bread, it'll be a nice reminder of this story and what happened on that road to Emmaus. So I hope you'll give it a try. All right. I have another song to sing with you this morning, and this one goes to a familiar tune. It goes to the tune of Do You Know the Muffin Man? It goes like this. Did you know that Jesus died, that Jesus died, that Jesus died? Did you know that Jesus died? He died for you and me. Do you know he lives again, he lives again, he lives again? Do you know he lives again, he lives for you and me? It's a nice Easter song, isn't it? All right. We're going to end our children's chapel this morning by saying another prayer together. Dear God, thank you for the wonderful surprise of Jesus, always with us. Amen. And that's true, right? Jesus is always with us. Cleopas didn't have to travel alone in this story. He had his friend with him and a best friend in Jesus who joined him. And the good news is that Jesus is always with us also. It may be a little difficult to see that all the time. You might have to look hard, but he's really all around us. He's in all of the people who share his love with us. So I hope you all have a wonderful week. I hope you have some nice discussions about Jesus as you break bread with your family. And I'm sending lots of love to you all.
A itty bitty baby in his hands, He's got the itty bitty baby in his hands. He's got the itty bitty baby in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got a you and me brother in his hands. He's got a you and me brother in his hands. He's got a you and me brother in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got a you and me sister in his hands. He's got a you and me sister in his hands. He's got a you and me sister in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole wide world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands.